should be going down marginally on Friday should an amendment to the special petroleum tax be assented to by the President this evening. Parliament passed the amendment under a certificate of emergency on Thursday, following agitations by sections of the public. A litre of petrol could be selling around 4 cedis 51 pesos, down from 4 cedis 67 pesos, whilst diesel could be selling for 19 pesos less at 4 cedis 48 pesos. It translates to 3.39% less for petrol and 4.14% less for diesel. Here is a report from Parliament on how the debate over the amendment went.
A proposed amendment by government received the support of the House, though the minority insists government could have done more than the marginal reduction. Here is Chairman of the Finance Committee, Dr. Mark Esibeyeboa, justifying the reduction.
Government has shown good faith. Previously it was 17.5%, and then it came down to 15%. Now, it stayed the ad valorem. If we didn't change it to a specific tax, what we'll be doing now will be reducing it from 15 to 13. If we didn't change the nature of the tax. So it would have come down from 17.5 to 13 from what we are doing. So this gradualist approach, I think, is good, so that you don't shock the budget, okay? Because this was not programmed in the budget. Government is going to lose revenue to the tune of about 48 billion Ghana cedis by doing this change from the ad valorem to the specific tax.
But when the report was put up for the consideration of the House, the minority side accused government of deceiving the country with a marginal reduction. The governing NPP, while in opposition, described the special petroleum tax passed in 2015 as nuisance tax and vowed to repeal it when voted into power. Former Deputy Power Minister John Jinapor and the minority chief whip, Mohammed Muntaka Mubarak, led a criticism in their contribution to the report.
What this government is seeking to do is to reduce the 53 to 46. Mr. Speaker, the difference is 7 pesos. When you multiply the 7 pesos by 4.5, honorable members, order. When you multiply the 7 pesos by 4.5, it takes you to 33 pesos. What they are doing is giving us gymnastics of if this happens, that happens, if that happens. What if it doesn't happen? As it stands now, Mr. Speaker, it is 33 pesos and not the 70 pesos. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. They are pretending not to see the windfall that they are getting, but are just coming to reduce it by 33%. Mr. Speaker, let me refer you to the NPP manifesto page 12, where they said teachers are suffering, teacher training are suffering. Almost everybody here, they said, was suffering, including men and women, children and Ghanaians are suffering. Mr. Speaker, my understanding was that everything that they were doing in government, this will be their benchmark. How do they reduce the suffering of the people? A listening government who fought and deceived the people by saying that they were suffering, they were going to retrieve their suffering, will be mindful that what we are getting, even above what you yourself are projected, you rather be turning down the relief to the ordinary people so that they push it.
But Deputy Finance Minister Kweku Kwate insists government is more committed to relieving Ghanaians of the hardship petroleum prices impose on them.
The NPP administration has no intention whatsoever to benefit from high crude oil prices, inflicting more taxation on consumers. But Mr. Speaker, as I indicated, in spite of the strategy in this tax measure, to change it from ad valorem to specific tax, we have also programmed a reduction in this. So that if ad valorem rates had existed to the end of the year, the government would have been making a margin of 47.9 million, which we are no more going to make because of this intervention. My colleagues explained that is small. Mr. Speaker, it is tantamount to a man who is unable to make a woman pregnant. The woman leaves him for another man, and when they have a child, they sit somewhere and say, look at the child. The legs are even not nice.
Eventually, the proposed amendment was passed, but not without drama over perceived disrespect showed the minority leader by the Speaker. Haruna Idrisu therefore warned he will disrespect the Speaker's directive if he continues to disregard the concerns of his side.
Matter of quorum, you can watch it. So I said, no, sit. So when you move, when you ask, after motion 13, when you move to motion 14, then I stood up. Mr. Speaker, the word before, it is for your interpretation, not change. Before a member moves a motion, not chairman Owusu. The word before is to be interpreted by you. Before the person moves the motion for third reading. So, Mr. Speaker, it is because at that point, I don't know what was in your mind about the minority that you didn't want to hear it. That can only be the reason.
But the majority leader, say Chairman Owusu, insists the Speaker acted within the law.
Mr. Speaker, you recognized the leader of the House before the minority leader. That is most appropriate. That is most appropriate. But Mr. Speaker, I believe that the minority leader must be given his due. The Speaker, except in this case, in this particular case, when he got up, the Speaker, the motion listed as item number 14 had already been called. Yes. The Speaker, that motion had already been called. The Speaker, the order the minority leader read to us. And with the indulgence of the House, I want to repeat after him. If any member desires to delete or amend a provision contained in the bill, which has passed through the consideration stage, or to introduce any new provision to it, he may, at any time before a member rises to move the third reading of the bill.
Member of Parliament for Adaklu, Kwame Agboja, tells Joy News the minority caucus will take a strong position on the Speaker's attitude.
Today has been one of the saddest days in Parliament. We are talking about a bill which is supposed to reduce tax on fuel. That should ordinarily be something we should all be interested in. Minority's view is that in opposition, the NPP promised that they will remove this. So we were just interested in removing the tax completely. When they came, they sought to just reduce it, in our view, by just 33 pesos. Then when we went through the first and the second reading, some members of the minority were of the view that we were not given opportunity to make the necessary amendment. Speaker was rushing through. When you get up, including myself, on several occasions, he refused to recognize me. When the minority leader himself got up, you will notice for about 6 minutes, Speaker refused. In fact, so for about 6 minutes, we didn't even know what we were doing in Parliament. He wasn't even communicating with us. Minority leader said he was not even getting up on the point of quorum. He was getting up to make a critical change. Indeed, they are more than us in Parliament. Even if we make the amendment and we vote on it and they win, so be it. But not being given the opportunity to even express our views, that is not what we are here to do.
7 of the 14 persons accused of murdering Army Major Maxwell Adom Adom will need to get themselves a new lawyer. This was after the lawyer who has been handling their case in the last 9 months, George Bernard Shaw, informed the Accra High Court trying them of his inability to continue, explaining that he may find himself in a fix if he goes ahead. The court on Monday commenced hearing of the matter after a circuit court committed them to trial last month. The court's date is March 5, but the case is unlikely to progress if 7 accused are unable to find lawyers. There is more in the following report.
The past 9 months has seen the accused persons make their way to the circuit court as the state builds its case during the committal process. For the next months and perhaps years, the law court complex, which houses the high court where their case is being heard, will be their new destination. All 14 were led into the court complex at about 10 a.m. on Thursday. Chief State Attorney Evelyn Kilson asked for 2 weeks to enable the state open its case. Private legal practitioner George Bernard Shaw, who has in the past represented all 14 persons, notified the court of his inability to continue with the attacks due to the difference in the nature of the defense of the accused persons. Another legal practitioner, Augustine Jemfi, has stepped in to represent 2 of the 14 individuals. Trial Judge Justice Mariama Owusu asked that the 2 defense lawyers assist those without legal representation to secure one. Hearing of the case continues on March 5.
We're taking a break here on Joy News Prime, but still ahead, Vice President charges Ghana Navy to intensify its activities against high seas fuel smugglers said to be largely responsible for contaminated fuel on the market.
Processes are very important, and when you look at a country that wants to move beyond aid, it is a country that has to maximize all its revenues.
We'll be back in a bit. Stay tuned. Students of the Pseudo Senior High Technical School at Esuchari here in the Greater Accra region are expected to return to campus on Friday, 1 week after the school was closed. Sources say the decision was arrived at on Tuesday at a meeting attended by district and regional directorates of education, school heads and other stakeholders. Over 1,000 students were sent home last Friday due to the unbearable level of air pollution by Shine Fuel Ghana Company Limited, which produces toilet rolls and plastics. Kwame Yanka's report.
The pollution had impacted negatively on the health of students and teachers who reports say have been diagnosed of smoke-related diseases despite persistent reports for work to halt since last year. However, measures put in place to ameliorate the situation did not yield results, forcing the students to agitate last week. The worst affected were final year students who were to sit for their mock exams this week.
This week we are going to write mock examinations, but due to the situation from the company over here, we've not been able to meet to write our exams.
I know that very well that when I go to the house, I can't study. But when I'm on campus, I can study very well. I decided to stay with one of my friends so that anytime I need help from my friends or any teacher around, I can go to him or her to explain whatever I need because I'm in my final year. And we are pleading with them to come and help us so that we can continue with our education, because if they continue producing, the Shine Fuel continue releasing their smoke, is affecting us.
School councillor Umar Farouk Idris says the break has had a negative effect on the final year students.
Very unfortunate. It is going to affect, in a way, our preparation, simply because you need to be put on training just as the situation you are going to face finally. And that is why we make them write the mock. And without this preparation, well, we can't tell the outcome. We can't tell the outcome because training brings results. Authorities out there are rather reactive. And from the look of things, the stakeholders out there must come in to make sure that we go back to the class. Other than that, it will affect the students. And it is their educational right. They have their educational right. But they are at home whilst their colleagues are in other schools studying. This is discrimination.
Meanwhile, Shai Osudoku District Assembly says it will monitor closely with other regulatory bodies the operation of the company said to be polluting the air. Kwame Yanka's report for Joy News.
Vice President Dr. Mamadou Bawumia has charged the Ghana Navy to intensify its patrol of the sea to arrest all criminal groups involved in the smuggling of petroleum products. It is estimated that the country loses $1 billion Ghana cedis to activities of criminal gangs who smuggle petroleum products into the country. The situation, according to the Navy, is the main source of the contaminated fuel on the market. Dr. Bawumia, who paid a surprise visit to the Western Region Naval Base Thursday morning, said it is time to make life-changing decisions in the country's maritime sector. Latif Idris went along and has come through with the following report.
Illegal bunkering cartels operating with specialized boats. The specialized boats I'm talking about, you can see one just behind me. There are about 1, 2, 3, 4 specialized boats that has been seized by the Western Naval Command here at Sekandi Takrade. Now, these illegal bunkering cartel have found safe haven here and are largely contributing to what we're witnessing as contaminated fuel on the Ghanaian market. The FOC Commodore Osei Kufuor of the Western Naval Command today has charged government to provide the Navy with the much needed resources to help fight the cartel on the high seas.
The prevailing threats and risks are identified as follows: piracy and armed robbery at sea, poaching of fisheries resources, illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing within the command's AOR, drug trafficking at sea, narcotics, illegal bunkering at sea, which I shall return to shortly to expand more on it, because it is a growing menace which, if not tackled head-on, could in the near future result in serious state capture. And we only have to look at the experiences of Nigeria.
Flag Officer Commanding Commodore Isaac Osei Kufuor added, for every arrest made, at least 9 or 10 members of the criminal gang escape. Some of the people involved in the illegal bunkering are reportedly connected to a wide network made up of Ghanaians and foreign nationals. The arrests, it turns out, have not deterred the criminals and well-connected cartel from engaging in the illegality. Vice President Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia, who toured the base to witness some of the specialized boats used by this cartel, rounded his tour at the palace of the Sikado Manhene, and his call was that the time has come for government to take life-changing decisions in the maritime sector.
The maritime resources are very important, and when you look at a country that wants to move beyond aid, it is a country that has to maximize all its revenues. And so when we lose revenues from illegal bunkering, which leads to smuggling of fuel into Ghana without paying taxes and so on, we've got to find ways of dealing with it.
You mind telling us exactly what government is going to do?
We have to brief the president and cabinet and everything, and we discuss some of these issues and then take some decisions. But we have to do that relatively quickly.
The vice president was accompanied on the visit by the defense minister, Dominic Nitiwu, and other government appointees.
The Mahine of the Sikado traditional area, Nana Kobnanketia V, has meanwhile challenged the Kufuor government to honor a promise it made in the run-up to the 2016 general elections to relocate the headquarters of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation to the Western region. According to the traditional leader, the relocation will revolutionize the country's economy. He's also made a passionate appeal to government to refurbish the Fiankwanta Hospital, a facility the Mahine likened to a hen coop. Nana Kobnanketia made the appeal when the Vice President called on him at his palace after visiting the Western Region Naval Base. Latif Idris has more.
Please, we've gone into an era that frightens some of us. And anybody who employs people based on party, based on ethnicity, is doing a disservice to the thought that produced this nation. We have seen people ask for party cards before they employ people to even do laboring job. Then you ask yourself, the white man ruled us through our divisions, the Wide et Impera. Why do we keep on dividing ourselves? And that unity is strength. Yentasa. I'm paying so wash your hand, Bobia, Yakuma Dahu, Papa. As a GNPC, about to headquarters now. Oh, yeah, as some are doing it to bring about a revolutionary change in the structures of this country. It's a bold decision. Restructure this country. This is one of the things you do. And see a time. Oh, yeah, mommy. Mitsaha. Oh, yeah, ma. But one of my best as I be over here. One for. Also, no, I can't even a warrior.
Now, the CEO of Just One Group of Companies was Thursday arrested and granted bail for contempt. The bench warrant followed contempt charges against Joseph Ksenia and two others in a case involving the seizure of a vehicle belonging to one Alhaji Abbas in 2015. Joy News has been speaking with the registrar of the Kumasi High Court, Ustaz Hamza.
Now we have been able to admit him to bail. So where we have reached now is left for them. He was arrested and granted bail. When? This morning. He was admitted to bail this morning. So the next case will be on the 7th March. And it's left for them to file if they have any affidavit in opposition to the application for the contempt. Then if probably they don't have any affidavit in opposition, then the court will go ahead to the determination.
Okay. But how far have we come? Why are we at this stage?
We are at this stage because the plaintiff, Alhaji Mohammed Abbas, obtained judgment against J Plant Pool. We went into, they have failed to honor the judgment. He has filed entry of judgment served on them until the time we went to attach their office at Jowulo. And they have actually come to open against the court order because their claim is that they have filed an application to set aside the execution, of which is even yet to be determined. So that is why they are also cited for contempt. And it's not only the CEO who is cited, but rather the CEO, the lawyer, Asafo Boabin, Kwekut Safo Boabin, and the manager, Patrick Asagba. These are the three people cited for the contempt.
So currently with the substantive case, the contempt case, which courts are hearing?
The substantive matter is before Justice Emmanuel Senyo. And actually, for now, I will not be able to tell you when the next adjourned date is because I didn't have the docket with me. But the application for the contempt is before Justice Samuel Obindiewu, which has now been adjourned to 7th March.
Today, can we confirm that Mr. Ksenia himself was at the court today and was arrested and granted bail?
Sure. I don't want to say he was arrested because he brought himself. Because after hearing that bench warrant has been issued against him, he brought himself and was admitted to bail. Because already the court made an order that arrested, he should be admitted to bail, which we did this morning.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Watching Joy News Prime, we're taking a break to bring you business news, but still ahead in the bulletin would be in the northern region town of Kukuo, where women are barred from preparing the popular staple, Wassa Wasa, right after they've had sex or when they're menstruating.
Even if you fluctuate, you are not allowed to prepare it because you are dirty.
According to me, like I
Right, we have that coming up later on in the bulletin. Right now, though, we bring you business news.
Hello again, good evening to you. Welcome to business. Now, heads of state of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, will sign the proposed common currency for the sub-region after an agreement with about 2 or more nations this year. The proposal to use the common currency to be known as the ECO has been under discussions for more than a decade. This currency is expected to enhance trade and investment among member nations. In an interview with Senior Minister Yaosafo Mafo, he said member countries have agreed to move on without waiting for all the other countries in the sub-region in meeting the criteria.
This is a question of the economic activity generated within the ECOWAS members. And most economic activity is with the sex. and therefore we are pushing very hard. We agreed way back in 2004 that the headquarters of the ECO will be in Accra. All the members agreed, because I was then the finance minister. The heads of state agreed. So that is what we have been developing for quite some time. There's going to be a summit before June about this currency, and our president is very dedicated to it. So I think we're going to get closer. You see, to get a common currency, meaning that you must have a common convergence criteria, that the whole economy should agree on certain parameters. Your inflation should be below X, your this should be this, your this should be that. Brings you together to be able to have a common currency. And therefore, the discipline of each economy within ECOWAS becoming the final determinant of having a common currency. If we are to have 4 criteria that we should all meet, and nobody is meeting it, how do you have a common currency? You get my point? And if only 2 countries are meeting it, how do you have a common currency? So it is this convergence criteria, like the Europe did. When you qualify, you get in. But now I think the idea is that any 2-3 countries which agree on the convergence criteria, who make it, will start the currency. Then the rest will join as they qualify.
Okay, so any deadline for it?
Thank you.
Any deadline for it?
Oh no, there's no deadline, because it is the management of the respective economies. You cannot put a force on Nigeria that they should meet their 4 criteria on such and such a date. You can't. But what is important is that Ghana and Nigeria become the 2 key countries whose qualification will facilitate the common currency because of their economic might or their size. Because if you have 2 small countries qualify, you can't push Nigeria and Ghana into a common currency. Currency is for what? It's for business, it's for trade. And therefore Nigeria is extremely important. Ghana is extremely important because of our sizes.
All right, so as we've been saying, prices of petroleum products may witness a marginal reduction at the pumps. Now, this follows the passage of the new Special Petroleum Tax Amendment Bill, which will see 33 pesos off every litre of petrol at the pumps. However, the Institute of Energy Security says government could have done much more better than the proposed 2% reduction in the Special Petroleum Tax. Speaking earlier in an analysis on the marketplace, principal researcher of the IES, Richmond Roxon, noted that making the SPT a specific tax would not make any significant impact on prices.
2% is woefully inadequate. And it's important that we look at this tax in perspective. In 2014, when it was laid in Parliament, a lot of people spoke against it. The government's argument was that prices had gone down on the local market. It had moved from 3 cedis 40 pesos to 2 cedis 60 pesos, and that consumers were enjoying. And that because we had a whole deficit in our revenues, because don't forget, we produce oil as a country, and even though when prices go down in international markets, consumers will enjoy, it goes back to affect government's revenue. So the argument was for it to augment government's revenue because the revenues from the petroleum field had dropped drastically.
Now, what 4 years after is going to be a specific tax now and not that ad valorem tax it used to be?
Whether it's 10 pesos, 20 pesos, 30 pesos, it still has a role to play in the price build-up. And we don't think it should be there in the first place. Because whether you reduce it from 17.5 to 15%, as this government did last year, or you reduce it from 15 to 13, as they are doing now, it will still have an impact. And we all know the prices of petroleum products in Ghana today are so high. You are buying a litre for 4 cedis 67 pesos, and out of that 4 cedis 67 pesos per litre, look at the number of taxes and levies in the price build-up alone. It is not good for you to be buying fuel at over 21 cedis. If this 2% goes ahead, if government passes the bill and the president assents to it, the reduction will be less than 10 pesos. It will be around 10 pesos.
But like you rightly said, it is not the only determinant in the price build-up. What if we are able to control the parity rate of the cedi to the dollar significantly.
That is one thing. There are three, I will group them in two. One will be variables, one will be constant. The variables will be the one that whatever the prices will impute them into the figure. So depending on how crude oil prices are on the international market, we'll fix that figure. If it's 10 pesos, you fix it. If it's $50, you fix it. If it's $70, you fix it in the formula.
Sure.
When you take finished products, normally the benchmark that we use is S&P's Platts benchmark. So whatever prices of LPG is, whatever the price of gasoline or gas oil, you just fix that. Whatever the exchange rate is, you fix that. For the exchange rate, government has some influence when it comes to the exchange rate. What of finished product?
Away from that, government is considering starting a national certification program for artisans operating in the country. This was revealed by the Minister for Employment and Labour Relations, Ignatius Bafwewia, at the launch of the 48th anniversary of the National Vocational Training Institute.
The National Vocational Training Institute, NVTI Ghana, has been in existence since 1970. Currently, the NVTI operates 34 vocational training institutions across the country and instructs trainees in a total of 28 skilled areas. The institution has produced over 2,000 entrepreneurs in several parts of the country. Speaking at the launch of NVTI's 48th anniversary, Minister for Employment and Labour Relations, Ignatius Bafwewia, noted that artisans who have not gone through formal education should be accredited.
You move out there, and by the roadside, you see so many people practicing trade. You see carpenters, you see masons, you see organizers, you see food vendors, you see all kinds of professionals operating. Then you ask, all these professionals, who certified them? I must admit that there are some that may have been certified, may have taken some of your tests and may have passed, but there are equal number of persons who also operate without any form of certification. So how do we distinguish the good ones from the bad ones? I think it is something that we need to be thinking about. There should be some kind of a national certification for artisans.
The theme for the anniversary is promoting technical and vocational education and training to provide solutions to Ghana's unemployment. Activities to mark the 48th anniversary will start later in March this year. Reporting for Joy Business, Karin Dodu.
And the Private Enterprise Federation, PEF, has called for the involvement of more institutions to come on board for the effective operation of the one-stop shop business registration. President of the Private Enterprise Federation, Wassa Wasa, explained that although the initial introduction of the SNET and TIN numbers, the Registrar General Department is a good move, there's still more to be done.
For now, the introduction of the one-stop shop for business registration affords applicants the opportunity to obtain all documents such as the GRA tax identification number and Social Security Insurance Trust number at the department. The aim will be to cut down the time spent in acquiring certification to commence business. However, according to the CEO of the Private Enterprise Federation, more institutions need to come on board to make the system more effective.
Now you get the TIN and you get SNET. But you need a fire service certification, you need EPA certification, you need office inspectorate certification. And so, but they all have to be obtained by the private sector. And it's been such a cumbersome process and procedures that you have to run around and it takes a number of different days and all. So what we have been advocating is to get them at one place. This is a beginning. You have now the Register Generals, you have 10, over there you have SNET. The others that have to come on board, the EPA and the Fire Service, Office Inspectorate, Town and Country Planning, those have to come on board. The state, the municipal business permit, they all have to be in one place. That's if they can have a collaborative platform and have one maybe questionnaire or licensing forms that you have to fill and then get that to be provided to you, I think it will make it easier.
Nana Osei-Bonsu also added the introduction of the tax identification number will enhance revenue collection.
So, but it identifies, it allows the authorities to identify businesses, to recognize where they are, to know the owners and all. Yes, you can incorporate a business and get a commencement certificate and don't operate at all.
And that's all in business for tonight. Many thanks for your company. My name is Emmanuel Abuachi. There's more news ahead. Don't go away.
The Chief Justice, the Leadership Justice Wassa Wasa, has hinted at plans to roll out an online filing system that will, as much as possible, reduce face-to-face interactions between litigants and officials of the court. The system, which will be activated next month, will be one of the ways the judiciary intends to fight corruption. Chief Justice Wassa made this known at the 2018 GIMPA Law Conference on the theme, the judiciary and its contribution to Ghana after 60, reflecting on the past, analyzing the present, preparing the future.
And we will also continue to watch out for all the wrenches in the works. And part of doing that is ensuring that we effectively eliminate the amount of face-to-face intervention other than inside the courtroom. So mechanisms have already been put in place and are being extended to ensure that, as much as possible, dealings between litigants and officials of the court, particularly at the registry and at the clerical level, is limited to only what is necessary. So from the beginning of next month, we will be rolling out the online filing system. And so this then brings me to the perspective, because I am one who certainly believes that the more technology you pump into a procedure-bound process, such as the legal and judicial process, the less you create opportunity for corruption.
On this part, an associate professor of the University of Ghana Faculty of Law, Professor Raymond Atugawa, stated if the Constitution was to be applied fully, all the members of the General Legal Council would have been in jail for failing to ensure the passage of a legislative instrument regulating entry into the Ghana School of Law. The Supreme Court sometime last year gave the General Legal Council 6 months to pass an LI if it wants to legalize its interview and entrance exams as the mode of admission to the school. But that has not happened. Some processes ought to be followed first in Parliament.
Roll forward to today, Asare and Attorney General. If we are going strictly by the Constitution, by now the entire General Legal Council should be in Nsawam, because the Supreme Court decision on it has not been complied with by the General Legal Council. And so under Article 2, 4 and 5, 3, 4 and 5, where you do not obey the decision of the Supreme Court, is characterized as a high crime, isn't it? And the penalty is 10 years in jail without the option of a fine. And after that, for 10 years, you don't have the chance to be a public officer. Because to the best of my knowledge, the LI has not yet been passed in order to manage the entry into a law school. Now, it is true that the judgment was pragmatic, isn't it? Because many things would have happened if the Supreme Court hadn't gone that way. But we also have to see it in terms of the Supreme Court going soft on its own. So the point I'm trying to make is that we have reviews and appeals and removal of justices as ways of moderating judicial excesses. But we also need public scrutiny. The judiciary is not comfortable with public scrutiny. But if our democracy is to sustain, we must be brave enough to scrutinize the judiciary.
Student nurses are the ones currently taking care of mentally challenged patients at the Ankafo Psychiatric Hospital in the Central Region. This follows the withdrawal of services by the nurses at the facility because they said they were running away from psychological and emotional danger. They refused to back down their demand to get the medical director of the hospital, Dr. Eugene Dodoye, removed for what they call poor management skills. Emmanuel Kojo Ofori speaks for the aggrieved nurses.
We started this way back October. We went for a sit-down action. Even though we didn't want to care for the patient, we were actually caring for them, of which the management can attest to that. We were dragged to the Labour Commission. When we went, there were no commissioners to litigate, but yet we continued and allowed the facilitators to mediate. Initially, we started with the point that he must be removed, or let's say transferred from this facility. We lobbied and they pleaded, and we got down to the point that, well, they are saying he's lacking managerial skills. That is their own fact-finding committee report, which the Mental Health Act 2012 states that before he was appointed, he should have had that. And so even though they've breached that, we still decided that, well, let's calm down. So send him to the managerial skills, training for him to acquire that skills. Then we said, okay, it will take about 2 years to complete. So we came to the point out that if that is so, we don't want to be used as experimental tools, or, excuse my language, lab rats, so that he will go for the training and come and experiment on us, so that when we voice out, they will say, oh, that's why he's still under training. So they should take him out for the period of 2 years when he's training, so that at least when he comes back, we will know that he's done with the training. They said that 2 years is too much time for them, so they will rather plead that we reduce it. We brought
Health Minister Agyeman is set to meet with the agitating Ankafo nurses and hospital authorities on Friday. Speaking to Gifty Andoapia on the polls earlier, the public relations officer of the Health Ministry, Robert Kujo, hinted the hospital may get a new health director.
It was able to have died down only for them to issue another threat of marking on sit-down strike, which Ireland started yesterday and it continues today. Every measure is being put in place. The minister is meeting the leadership, Dr. Osei, director of the boss of mental health authority was yesterday, conferred with the minister. A meeting will be held as soon as possible to address the issue. But looking at the way things are going, it's likely a new dance to be given. And that one I can't say for sure what it is, but when we get there, the public will get to know.
Up next, we're bringing you entertainment, but we'll be in the northern region town of Kuku, where women are barred from preparing the popular staple Wassa Wasa right after they've had sex or when they're menstruating.
Even if you fluctuate, you are not allowed to prepare it because you are dirty.
According to me,
the Kumasi Traditional Council is prevailing on all parties to respect the Supreme Court ruling on the relocation of the Agyeman District Capital from Fuase to Chedie. Manta Mahene, an acting chairman of the Kumasi Traditional Council, Akwasi Owusu Amankwetias, the state, says a committee will be constituted to prepare residents psychologically for the relocation. The decision was taken after Ashanti Regional Minister Simon Mensah, who chairs the Regional Security Council and Assembly officials, briefed members on last week's disturbances at Fuase, which resulted in 3 deaths when protesting residents clashed with security personnel during protests over the relocation of the district capital. Agyeman has more in the following report.
3 people died and several others wounded when protesting residents clashed with security personnel over the disputed relocation of the capital. At least 7 people are still on admission at the Konadu Teaching Hospital. Traditional authorities say they respect the Supreme Court's 2012 ruling ordering relocation of the district capital from Fuase to Chedie. The chiefs, however, chastised police for acting unprofessionally in handling the protestation, calling for investigation and severe punishment against culprits. Nana Nsuasi Agyeman III is Asantehine's chief linguist.
Supreme Court
The Supreme Court ruled the district capital should be relocated to Twede. Once the Supreme Court has ruled, we have to respect that decision. We want the assembly offices in Twede sited close to Fuase in order to extend development to Fuase too. One of the police officers detailed to maintain order in Fuase was injured. Police say they have launched investigations into the killing of 3 residents. We do not accept police unprofessional conduct. Why use live ammunition against unarmed rioters? We want to see all those involved punished.
Meanwhile, the Ashanti Regional Minister has been responding to criticism. He failed to visit bereaved families and injured victims at Fuase.
When are you visiting the bereaved families? You are extending condolences to them. When are you visiting the bereaved and especially those who are on admission? There are concerns that you visited the Ebony accident scene. Meanwhile, 3 people have died here and the minister is here to visit them.
You know, the 2 things are not the same. One, we have crisis. The other one was lorry accident. You cannot compare situation of lorry accident to that of communal crisis. We have to wait. I take instructions from the security apparatus. If they tell me that the security situation at the place is good, that's the time I visit the place. If the security situation is not good, the environment is bad, I don't think I have to go there to escalate the existing trouble that we have in the area. That is why we've not been there. If you even listen to the concluding portion of Balfour Amankwetia, who is Bantman, that says that they will appeal to the chief and his elders and the people in the community so that peace can prevail, and then the members of the District Assembly can go and carry on their work peacefully.
Mr. Simon Osemensa tells journalists the situation in Fuase was avoidable as he calls for restraint from stakeholders.
We wish to assure everybody that we use all the possible means to ensure that the relocation process will be smooth with no casualty again apart from what has happened. It will be difficult for RESEC to see now that we are planning for any compensation or not, because we have to wait, and when the report is ready, that is when we can take the decision. Now that the security people are doing their investigations to come out with a report, it will be extremely difficult for me to say that we are going to pay compensation or not.
From Kumasi,
cocoa farmers of Huniso at Prestia and the Western region are appealing to the government to intervene over what they are calling a destruction of their livelihoods by the Ghana Rubber Estate Limited following a long-standing dispute between the rubber company and cocoa farmers. They fear Ghana will be the biggest loser as cocoa trees may be extinct in the next 5 to 10 years. Ghana would not be able to boast of a single cocoa tree in the country. There's more in the following report.
The dispute started 5 years ago when the chief of Awudia traditional area, Nanango, gave up his over 600 acres of cocoa farmland for cultivation of rubber. The farmers received 6,000 cedis for each acre of land, out of which they paid original owners of the land, including the chiefs, amounts totaling about 4,500 cedis. This leaves the farmers with a paltry 1,500 cedis. Feeling cheated, the farmers went to court to demand back their lands. After the chiefs Nana Ango and Nanansa failed to show up in court, a Tarkwa Magistrate Court presided over Nana Odiewuo ruled in favor of the cocoa farmers, allowing the fathers to take over their farmlands. It's been about 5 years after the judge's ruling, and the Ghana Rubber Estate Limited has returned, cutting down the cocoa trees and destroying other plantations. Chief cocoa farmer Akwasi Owusu of Huniso says the action by the Rubber Estate Limited is heartbreaking and a total destruction of their source of livelihood.
The foodstuffs on our farms have been destroyed by the rubber company. They used heavy equipment to destroy all our produce. Even our children who are in school do not have food to eat. And of course, this can affect their studies. They now have to go all the way to Tarkwa to get food.
This is also the same on top of the same thing. So, Takwa nearby, about 12 years, and so Takwa from so as I bought.
He is appealing to government to intervene in the matter.
This year, may send me so
we plead with government to try and resolve the issue for us because cocoa generates a revenue for the country. It is the same cocoa proceeds that we use to pay off the loans we access. So we do not want them to cut our cocoa trees. As a chief farmer, I cannot sit and allow them to cut down the cocoa trees. Based on this, we sent the issue to the BNI in Bogoso. They assured us they worked on it too.
Jacqueline Nate's report for Joy News.
The Ghana AIDS Commission is investigating a father who reportedly maltreated and discriminated against his daughter who is HIV positive. Joy News on Wednesday aired the story of the girl, now 17 years old, who was barred from touching anything at home and eventually made homeless. Director of Research, Monitoring and Evaluation with the Commission, Chairman Chiahene, says the Eastern Region Coordinator will be liaising with the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice for a balanced outcome. He spoke on the Pulse earlier on Thursday.
Now, the father of that girl is not behaving right, and we have our coordinator, technical coordinator in Eastern Region taking up this matter. He's following up to ensure that the girl is protected and kept secure by appropriate state agencies, and then the father too will be talked to. We try to understand what the issues are and see how best to resolve the matter. So SHRAJ would look at the issue and see how best to resolve it. We have structures that help to deal with this. Now, one of the things we have tried to do, apart from the media and various community-based activities, is to get a system of reporting of such cases to SHRAJ. And we have an electronic system. So people report, and then we get to know from SHRAJ how they have dealt with the issue. So fortunately, we now have a law in place, Act 938, which we call Ghana AIDS Commission Act, which criminalizes stigmatization of HIV in the country.
The National Cardiothoracic Center is worried about how long it takes for patients with heart-related ailments to report to the hospital. The delay, according to its director, complicates the cases and significantly reduces the patient's chances of full recovery. Dr. Lawrence Rebo, at the presentation of a 120,000 cedis donation to the facility, urged patients to report cases immediately rather than turning to prayer camps and herbalists. Beryl Ernestina Richter's report.
The 120,000 Ghana cedis is mobilized from the 1 peswa factored into the price of each bottle of Awake mineral water. That's 12 million bottles sold in the 4th quarter of last year. The donation, along with support from other companies and benevolent organizations, goes to subsidize the treatment of patients who present cases to the center but who often do not have the means to afford the rather high costs, such as 15-year-old GSS3 pupil Stephanie Irama Hope.
Sometimes when I'm sick, I can't go. And when it is break time, I'll be in the class. I play with my friends. Sometimes I'll be in the hospital for about a month. And Christmas time, I'll be in the hospital. And I can't spend the Christmas with my family. And I'm telling all Ghanaians to help people like us so that we can live a good life. And now I'm feeling better. I want to be a doctor to save a life.
Director of the National Cardiothoracic Center at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, Dr. Lawrence Siribo, explains the center relies heavily on such donations to stay afloat.
You see several patients that you know you can help in a way, but you see that these people cannot afford even the basic medications. It's a big problem, and it's quite distressing when you see such a thing. You make a diagnosis, you can do something, but the person cannot afford it. So when we have donations from Kwasa Preku and others like this, it's quite welcome. Some people will come very late, just like, they've gone around, gone to herbalists, gone to all sorts of places, prayer camps, and then when they are about to pass away, then they ship them here. It's one of the problems we have too.
Managing Director of Kasapreko Company Limited, Richard Ajay, explained the rationale behind the donation, adding that as part of efforts to extend its corporate social responsibility drive, plans are in progress to build a hospital in the Western region.
We decided to go for the cardio center because we felt, first of all, water is life. At the same time, your heart is your life. Without the heart, you are practically dead. That's how come we decided to support the cardio center, to keep people alive in Ghana. We are looking at some places to also build hospitals and in some villages in Ghana. We currently have a location in the Wassa district to build a hospital within the next 2 years. We'll finish that project.
The latest donation brings to 800,000 cedis the support given to the center by Kasapreko from the sale of its bottled water since it started production 2 years ago. The occasion was also used to launch the Hearts Awake Human Chain project to help reinforce the spirit of Ghanaian unity and collaboration towards the cause.
Now, women in some parts of northern Ghana are frustrated by an age-old belief that bars them from preparing one of the main staples in that part of the country. It is believed that women cannot be found making Wassa Wasa right after they have had sex or when they are menstruating. Joining us, Justice Bedu has been to Kuku, a small town in the Nanumba North District, to find out more about this age-old belief.
It's a tough job preparing many Ghanaian food, but making Wassa Wasa is even tougher. This staple, made from dried yam, is a popular meal, especially in northern Ghana. But the problem is, if you are a woman who's just had sex or is menstruating, you are banned from going near it. This is Mma Adiza going through the first stage of the preparation, pounding the dried yam. She will then have to take it to the milling machine for it to be milled and then boiled till it begins to look like a rice meal. On days when she is menstruating, she doesn't do this, even though selling it is her major source of income.
This food is very nutritious and gives a lot of energy, but preparing it is very tedious. If you start from about 6 in the morning, you would finish around 3 in the afternoon.
Aishetu is only 19 and has been helping her mother prepare and sell Wassa Wasa since she was a child. She is frustrated she's unable to prepare the food any day she wishes to, or even come to the market to sell it on days she has sex or is menstruating, but says she has been brought up to believe something bad could happen if she does.
The belief is that you have to be healthy to prepare this food. So when you sleep with your husband, you can't do it. Or when you are menstruating. If you do prepare it, the food will go bad. This food is pure, so it likes women who are pure.
Thank you very much. So, with yam and beans leaves plus oil, this could be one of the most tastiest foods you can ever have anywhere in the world. But this is not meant to be prepared by just anybody at all. It actually just tastes like water, but just even better and probably even more nutritious. Wassa Wasa is one of the most nutritious foods in the country, but the beliefs surrounding its preparation shows the endemic nature of the myths that continue to surround menstrual and sexual health in Ghana. Justice Pseudo, Joy News, Kuku.
Elsewhere, tons of farm produce could go to waste in parts of the Upper East region due to lack of storage facilities and ready market. Farmers in the region say their harvests in the last season were good despite the fall armyworm invasion. We'll join this agenda, which focuses on government's Planting for Food and Jobs program. Upper East correspondent Albert Sori spoke to some farmers and came through with this report.
1,620 farmers registered, 1,200 extension officers, and 1,303 aggregators, if you total them. Now, let's go back to the input suppliers, those who distributed the fertilizer, the seed, their staff. And we engaged 15 companies who were supplying the fertilizer. And all of them.
This was Deputy Minister for Agriculture in charge of horticulture, George Odro, during a recent visit to the Upper East region to assess the impact of government's Planting for Food and Jobs program. The program, according to government, is aimed at producing enough food to feed the nation, export the surpluses, reduce the excessive food import bill, and generate employment for Ghanaians. Last year, 200,000 farmers were targeted nationwide for the program. George Odro was impressed about the strides the Planting for Food and Jobs program has made so far.
Now, in addition to that, we are saying we have registered 1,300 aggregators who are buying the produce from the farm gate. Each, even one aggregator is using, say, 2 or 3 trucks. Look at the number of people who are using the trucks, the drivers, they meet. When they get there, they're loading and offloading, tablet all of them. Now, we'll go back to the buffer, National Buffer Store. It's a warehouse. How many people are there working at the warehouse, especially where you are now? Obviously, there's somebody here working here. When the trucks are here to offload all this, it will be there'll be job for boys doing the loading and offloading.
Some farmers here in the Upper East region say the Planting for Food and Jobs program was very helpful to them, so they were able to get good harvests despite the invasion of the fall armyworm.
The previous years, though we have support from the government, but actually 2017 respectively, we were able to get support from the government, which is the Planting for Food and Jobs program. And based on that program, we were able to expand our acreage. Previously, I did maize at 76 acres, but last I was able to do 150 acres. Because of the army, the fourth army, when we were not able to get the actual target. But it's better than the previous years because the cost of fertilizer was totally drastically reduced. And based on,
I would say that this year it's good. It's better than the other year because you have to spend more to even get your produce. Because seed low was high, fertilizer too was high, and then adding to your labor cost. We're even thinking of quitting. Apart from this Planting for Food and Job, we just say let's try. We'll give it a try this time.
However, the farmers are still facing some challenges. George Alokodongo is a commercial farmer based in the Upper East region. He was adjudged National Best Farmer in the year 1996 and is the chairman of the Council of Elders of the Award Winners Association. Mr. Alokodongo says farmers like himself were approached by government to play a role in the Planting for Food and Jobs program due to their level of experience.
Government's engagement actually is that they are into small farms, and they are saying we, the commercial farmers, should help. That is, we absorb them into our farms, teach them how to farm. Then we will take the responsibility of giving them the inputs, giving them the assistance, and then already we will still take the responsibility of marketing their produce, which actually you know that it will be very difficult for the commercial farmer because the commercial farmer has got his own farm to manage.
He confirms government's recent claim of bumper harvest as far as the Upper East region is concerned. but says most of the farmers have not been able to make any income from their harvests.
Even not by the armyworm. This year, never is year, maize would have been terrible. Though the armyworm came, but people made it. My farmers were.
It would have been terrible. What do you mean?
The harvest would have been more. Government couldn't have. Even right now, they don't have a place to store the maize. Earlier on, I started that even me, my people here, we are finding it difficult to sell. But when the women come here with their bag, it's not the actual cocoa sack as we see. They bring in some jute sacks, very big ones. And because there's no market, there's only one woman buying. What can you do? You are bound to sell it out because the bank is on your neck. You are bound to sell it out. And that means you are giving at a giveaway thing. They say, well, you come here, the way they were going about it, that means you needed 3 bags to fill their 2 sacks.
Mr. Alokudongo says the Planting for Food and Jobs program is a good initiative, but adds that for the program to succeed and be sustainable, government needs to take another look at its approach.
If the government can encourage or bring in inventory credit, you know, the women, the market women, because they know that there's nowhere we can sell. Government says produce, but he hasn't asked buyers to buy. If government had contacted certain companies to also buy from the farmers, Rome wasn't built in a day. So you start maybe, okay, this year I'm going to take 2,000 tons of maize and other cereals from Upper East. I'm going to take 4,000 because Northern region is almost twice like Upper East. I will take so much. At least the farmers will give. And what is left, well.
The Planting for Food and Jobs program is definitely producing food in the Upper East region. But from what the farmers here say, it is not exactly creating jobs because they are not able to sell most of their produce due to lack of ready market. For Joy News, Albert Sorry, reporting from Bolgatanga.
This is Joy News Prime.
Right, and in our headlines, the trial of 14 persons accused of murdering Army Major Maxwell Mahama in May last year may suffer further delay unless 7 of them are able to find a new lawyer to represent them before the next hearing. Fuel prices expected to go down marginally following a review of the special petroleum tax by Parliament. The minority, however, want a much bigger reduction. The Vice President has charged the Ghana Navy to intensify its activities against high-seas fuel smugglers said to be largely responsible for contaminated fuel on the market. In business, heads of state of the Economic Community of West African States to sign proposed common currency for the sub-region this year.